Hi, this is Alicia Bright again. We're going to be talking about the nursing concept of immunity. The exemplars we're going to use are allergies and anaphylaxis, lupus, and multiple sclerosis. We're also going to apply this concept a little bit to COVID-19 since it is the hot topic, and I have got a couple of articles about the challenges involved in developing a vaccine for COVID-19. So immunity is, according to Giddens, a normal physiologic response to microorganisms and proteins, as well as conditions associated with an inadequate or excessive immune response. And so we're going to talk about both inadequate and excessive immune responses. But first, we're going to just do a brief review of the immune system. Now, I hope that you got this down in your anatomy class, your physiology class, and your pathophysiology class. But of course, we can all use a little bit of a refresher, so I hope this is just a refresher for you. Let's remember that there are basically three lines of defense. The skin, or the boundary around the body, and then if the bugs get inside, it's the activity of the phagocytes, natural T killer lymphocytes, granulocytes, and macrophages. Those are the soldiers in this war, if you care to use the war analogy. And then there's the antibodies, which are derived from the T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes. And these provide a little more specific immunity. We're going to get into that just a little bit more in a minute. Basically, you've got hopefully an optimal immune response, but the other ends of those spectrums, include a suppressed immune response or an exaggerated immune response. So remember the organs of the central lymphoid organs, or the primary organs of immunity, include the thymus gland, which shrinks with age and is involved in the differentiation and maturation of T lymphocytes, T for thymus, and the bone marrow, which produces the red blood cells, the white blood cells, and the platelets. This is just a picture of the organs of immunity. Remember, the spleen is involved. If you think about Felty syndrome and rheumatoid arthritis, this would be a dysfunctional immune situation where the spleen was involved and becomes enlarged and overwhelmed. The bone marrow is considered an organ of immunity, tonsils, different lymph tissue throughout the body. So remember that lymphoid stem cells are generated out of the bone marrow, and they travel to the thymus, and some of them stay in the bone marrow. The ones that are developed through the thymus become T cells, and the ones that come through the bone marrow are B cells. And these are both organs of immunity, and they go into the anatomical organs, the secondary lymphoid organs, and develop cellular immunity. So you'll develop into the T regulatory cells, the cytotoxic T cells, the memory T cells that help us helps the body mount a faster response the second time it's exposed to a pathogen, and memory B cells, which do a similar job, plasma cells, and the antibodies that are created by the blood cells. And you notice there are two branches from the secondary lymphoid organs. There's cellular immunity and humoral immunity. So, always with prevention in mind, think about ways to support your immune system. And this is probably more important than ever because if you haven't been exposed to COVID-19, and a lot of us haven't, actually the vast majority of the world has not at this point, even though we've got stories about our healthcare system being overwhelmed. Most of us have not been exposed to this. Many people who have been exposed to it have not gotten very sick with it. They're estimating that up to 60% of people have not gotten sick with it. Their immune system just manages it. Unfortunately, some people get very sick, and it's thought that the response of the immune system actually develops into a cascade that becomes very severe and leads to the respiratory distress associated with COVID-19. So I want to encourage everybody to take good care of their immune systems anyway, but particularly right now. It's very important. And so exercise, moderate amounts of exercise. You don't have to be training for the Olympics right now. Actually, too much exercise can wear on your immune system and on your body in general. But if you're doing an appropriate amount of exercise and keeping your body moving, you're going to be supporting your immune system. Nutrition, of course, is very important. Getting enough sleep, very important. It's kind of cool. I actually heard from some of you in class yesterday or Thursday, that you are getting more sleep. And this is actually a really good thing. This helps our immune system to be stronger. Getting immunizations is important. Make sure that your immunizations are up to date and encourage people to have their immunizations up to date. This is the active immunity that we get artificially without having to actually have the disease. And then I've got this little picture of trees on there because it is very important to get out there in nature, manage stress, interact with the natural world. This has a measurable effect on your immune system, actually, and has been found to be very good for you. The other thing is, you see the pictures of lots of people in here. Social support is important. Social support is probably one of the things that is most important right now since we're physically isolating from each other. Staying connected, be in touch with your family, your friends, your study buddies. I've heard from people that I haven't heard from in a long time since this started, just because I think it's important for everybody to reach out and connect. That helps to support our immune system, believe it or not. There have been studies that demonstrate that social support is one of the best things you can do for your immune system and for your general health. So there's my plug for prevention. Probably no surprises there. I just want to remind everybody of how important it is right now. So when we have a normal immune response, it is mounted by antigens and antibodies. Antigens are the substances the body recognizes as foreign that elicit an immune response, and most of these are proteins. Very rarely, but sometimes people are allergic to lipids, nucleic acids, lipoproteins, nucleic acids, polysaccharides. Some of these things can trigger immune response, but primarily the things that trigger immune response are proteins. Antibodies are immune globulins that are produced by the lymphocytes in response to specific antigens. So remember, the complement system is a cascade of reactions from about 25 proteins. This enhances the immune response. There are almost 100 cytokines that can be released that cause inflammation. These cause the redness and swelling of the inflammation. Immune system cells that are involved in this response are the B lymphocytes, which secrete the antibodies, and the T lymphocytes, which help the B cells. Remember, there are phagocytes as well, and there are 5 classes of antibodies that are present in the body at all times. So just to quickly review the types of immunity, the innate immunity is present at birth. This is your first-line defense against pathogens. That's your IgM. Acquired immunity is developed. You can have active or passive. And remember, active immunity would be you got the disease and now you have the antibodies, or you got the immunization and now you have the antibodies. The passive immunity would be gamma globulin, for instance. We just give you immunity to a lot of things. We give you a concentrated antibodies. The way they're using that in COVID-19 experimentally, I've heard, is they're taking antibodies, they're taking plasma from people who've had the disease and have been able to develop the IgG associated with the COVID-19 virus, and they're injecting that plasma into people who are currently fighting the disease. They're hoping to give people some passive immunity in that way. Okay, so little question here for you. A patient with a sore throat and rhinitis has an elevated level of IgG in the blood. The nurse explains that the patient's symptoms are most likely caused by, would it be A, an allergy, B, exposure to toxic fume, C, an initial viral infection, or D, a reinfection by bacteria? Well, the conversation that we just had, I would hope that you would realize that it's D. IgG would be elevated in a reinfection by a bacteria or a virus. So, what are we going to do to assess immune function? We're going to do a really good health history. We're going to ask for information that would tell us that the person might have optimal immune functioning, suppressed immune functioning, exaggerated immune functioning. We might do lab tests such as C-reactive protein and erythrocyte sedimentation rate. And they might do allergy testing. And risk factors for altered immune function, we'll get into that assessment a little bit more in the next lecture, but the risk factors for altered immune function include age, so of course the very old and the very young. Environmental factors, such as being exposed to different pathogens. Somebody with chronic illness is going to have a suppressed immune response. Medical treatments such as chemotherapy can suppress the immune response. Some people have genetic predisposition to a suppressed response. People who engage in high-risk behaviors. Substance abuse. These conditions can suppress the immune system. Pregnancy also changes the immune system and sometimes suppresses it. And somebody who is not immunized will have less immunity than they could have to a contagious situation. On the other hand, exaggerated immune response. Now we're talking about autoimmune conditions, in addition to allergies and anaphylaxis. So gender, race, ethnicity, and genetics, these are all kind of, genetic issues that, your own body makeup. Just some people just react in strange ways to some things. And some people develop autoimmune problems and they develop an immunity to their own tissues. This is genetic, and we don't really understand how that happens yet. We just know that sometimes it runs in families. There are also environmental factors for exaggerated immune response. Pollens in the air, for instance. Pollens aggravate people's immunity. A lot of people are more sensitive to pollens than they'd rather be. They'd rather not have it bother them. And they get a big nose full of pollen and they start sneezing. But that's the way it is. Medication can also cause exaggerated immune response to some things. All right, that's a general introduction, kind of a refreshment of our knowledge of immunity and antibodies. And we're going to break that down and apply it to a couple of medical conditions next.